Welcome to the Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Kendra Grams, pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Hudson, Wisconsin, and back with you to host another segment in our ongoing series of clergy conversations. Today we'll be exploring how faith and our spending choices intersect and how they might influence one another, and I am thrilled to be joined by two of my clergy colleagues from the Hudson area, the Reverend Dr. Dan Brook and the Reverend Aaron Nelson. Among their many, many other gifts and pursuits and ministries in our area and broader, they both have unique connections to the Purple Tree, a gift shop that features goods that are good for the planet, good for people. I think I got that slogan right, in downtown Hudson. Dan and the Brook family founded the store in 2004, owned and operated it until just recently, this past summer, when they sold the store to Erin and her family. So I'm grateful to have them with us to share a little bit of the story of the store, but to talk, as I said, more broadly about how the store came to be, how it was related and is related to their faith commitments, and what we as people of faith or people of no faith, how we can embody our commitments through our consumer choices. So Dan, let's start with you and the founding of the Purple Tree. How, way back when, all those years ago, did faith commitments play into your decision and your family's decision to think up this store, launch it, and get it going?
Well, our founding was really based on politics rather than religion, to be honest with you. In 2004 already, this community, our culture, had divided itself pretty much into the reds and the blues. And it became very problematic really for us. I suppose the sort of the spiritual side of it is how difficult it is to see brothers and sisters separated over something really as relatively unimportant as political ideology, although not everybody would agree with that. Anyway, I had just recently retired from the pastoral ministry, and we had previous to that started talking about what kind of a business we could have that could help bring people together, sort of unify them toward common interests and common things that are good for our culture. And we got together at Dibbo's. You're too young to be at Dibbo's. You're too young to have ever been at Dibbo's. But Dibbo's was the best social work agency in this entire community, among being a really good restaurant where Liz and I could have a dinner and she could have a glass of wine for $7. So you can see why we love Dibbo's. Anyway, I got together with Sarah, one daughter, and Angela, another daughter, and Liz, my spouse, and myself, and decided what to do. And it was Sarah, although she insists it was me, so we still have this argument. But I know she said, look at Dad, we can either keep griping about it or we can do something positive about it. And so we decided to open a storefront. We had a couple of basic rules that I think were based in terms of concepts of Christian stewardship. One, we would only have merchandise in there that somehow returned monies back to four interests, values really, that we thought should be shared by reds and blues alike. One was social justice. One was fair trade, treating people properly. One is a sustainable environment. And the other, what was the other? What's our other one? Social justice, peace? Oh, peace.
Peace,
The most important of all, peace. So we decided we would never have any products in there that are made by sweatshops, that we only had merchandise that was made where the actual producers of the merchandise were paid fairly, treated fairly, things of that sort. and that they were organizations that when we bought from them, they would use some of their profits to go back to aid in one of those 4 basic causes. I think a value base that actually Erin and Mitch, her good spouse, shared, because we had determined if it sell, we would only sell it to somebody like Erin and Mitch. And but that's how it all started. And we made the decision in October. By the end of November, we were up and running, and we had no clue what we were doing whatsoever. But that was the impetus for it. And the name, the Purple Tree, basically was developed because purple is a blending of reds and blues. A tree has to do with growth and new life and strength and all those good things. And in fact, over the years, in spite of a rocky start where not everybody really appreciated our presence in the community, it really has served the function and continues to, I think you'll agree, with blending people of diverse ideologies. We don't have only liberals in there, we don't have only conservatives. In fact, we usually don't know who they are, except as you get to know people in the community, you know where they are. And so it has been a wonderful experience in that way, that I think it really has brought diverse peoples together in a positive way, and I think doing positive things. In terms of another sort of a theological stewardship principle, we decided when we started that we would never borrow money, and we would only grow as the store could grow itself. And those are 2 big burdens to live with, but if you hang on, they work. So
faith commitments and your personal commitments woven throughout. So Erin, for you and your spouse Mitch and your family, how do you hope to continue those commitments, grow them, and how is that related to your faith?
Yeah, well, I came to know and love the Purple Tree as a customer. So it was a store that I frequented and shopped at, like a lot of other people in the community, and did so because I like the idea of my spending dollars going to good. So if I was buying a Christmas present, I wanted not only to buy a nice Christmas present for someone, but also to feel really good about that money that I spent and know that it was supporting another family out there, or helping to make sure someone was being paid fairly, or giving back to the environment. All really important to me and my family. When the Brooks talked about transitioning out of the store, I found out on social media the way a lot of people did. And I showed my husband, and he goes, "We should buy it." And which, if you know my husband, that's not him at all. So it was a little shocking for us. But when we first started talking to Sarah and Angela and Dan and Liz about the store, Dan and I talked a lot about our faith lives. And for me, the call to ministry was very much centered around a call to social justice work and a call to help people and make this world a more beautiful place. And I think it was the same for you. And I feel blessed that I've been able to do that work in a variety of different settings as a pastor. But also, sometimes it's hard to do that social justice work in congregational settings. And I really saw the store, and still see the store, as a place of ministry, as a place where I can live out that call to do social justice work each and every day in a very different setting. And what's really quite beautiful about the store is there are people who will come into the store who will never set foot in a church, but they will. And you guys told me this, and I've learned it in the past couple months. People tell you their stories, and they share with you a lot about their lives, and they tell you what they're passionate about, and they talk to you about their pains. And it really is a beautiful place where people come together and try to just to put out good into the world, and also care for each other and care for others.
That's great. So for both of you, past and present, what are some examples of people coming into the store and perhaps echoing some of your shared values in their excitement to shop in the store and support the various commitments that are embodied there.
I think the biggest consumer base are folks who really have a passion for caring for creation. And among them is my husband. That is something that he is incredibly passionate about. And he has really pushed us over and over and over again to change the different kinds of products that we buy and the different ways that we live our life to make sure that we are doing our best to care for creation. And there are people who come from all over because we have things like laundry powder or environmentally friendly dish soap and stuff like that, or bar shampoo. So there is a huge consumer base that's just really loyal to keeping the products that they buy for their daily life just as environmentally friendly as possible. There's also a lot of folks who really just love products that give back and just love the idea that every time I buy this, a tree is going to be planted. And so I think it's wide and varying, but people come in every day and talk about how they have been affected and changed their shopping habits because of stories that they've heard. The idea of sweatshops, and as we've seen increase in technology and are becoming more aware of how things are manufactured, I think that's woken up so many people and caused a lot of people to seek out places where they can make sure that people are being treated fairly and not being abused in the manufacturing of products.
Any examples you would add of what you've seen people committed to and how they've been able to engage that through the store?
Well, excuse me. I think maybe on a slightly different direction, although Aaron alluded to it. The product base brings in a certain category of people to begin with. But the category that I think always gave us the most joy was the children. We always, and Erin's learned this already, we always, and she was continuing it, have enough items in there that are like under $10, some under $5, that are still attractive, that kids want so they can come in, they don't have much money, and they can look around and you can engage in conversations, and it's such a comfortable, welcoming place, not only for children, but adults too, but it's the children particularly that really get turned on to some of the stuff. We've had to, when we were there, maybe Erin will have better luck now, we used to always have kids from Willow River or various elementary schools come by and talk about the environment, have lessons on it. At that time we carried a product that's still available. Maybe you'll get it again. It's called poo paper, P-O-O paper. It was made out of elephant poop. Anyway, as you might guess, it was a perfect entree to elementary school to give up a whole sample of poo paper and to talk about elephant poop and how these are ways to improve the environment, to take these kinds of substances, reuse them, blah, blah, blah. And but at one time when you talked about social justice, this maybe happened a decade ago or so, there was a period where on television, one of the main bubbleheads on television had made a big deal about if you hear the word social justice in your church, don't go there. They're communists. And somebody in this town made a big issue with the school board about, it says social justice on their window. So they're communists. We're not going to let our kids go there anymore. So we had to give up on this school relationship. And it was then where we changed our tagline, not our tagline, but I suppose you call it a tagline. We always had in the window peace, social justice, fair trade, sustainable environment. And we removed that, and that's when we went good for the people and good for the planet to kind of soften it. you sell out a few of your principles sometimes just to stay in business, you know. But we replace them with the same thing, just different words. Anyway, so it's the joy of having kids. Well, my wife likes to tell the story. She was late one night, ready to close, 5 to 5 or whatever it was, ready to get home, and a car pulled up in front, and a young girl, I don't know, probably the age of your third grader, got out, came in, and Liz said, well, is anything I can help you with? And she said, no, I just like to walk around. So she walked around, looked at things, and after 5-6 minutes, she started to leave, and I said, well, thank you very much for coming. And she said, well, I had a kind of a bad day at school, and my mom said, well, what can we do to make you feel better? And she said, I told her, I just want to spend a little time in the purple tree. So she did. And good stories like that.
Yeah.
You'll get a lot of them.
That's a great testament. And I love how what you shared there, both about a commitment to having it be a place for kids to learn and explore and grow their commitments, and the partnership with the schools to help them grow. I think that leads into that we're all on a growth journey. And it sounds like in your interactions, even in changing a tagline, some adaptation, some learning and growing to continue to hopefully have the Purple Tree be a place where, as you started out with, everybody can come together. So my follow-up question then is, as you both as individuals, as people of faith then, to even make it a little bit more personal, and you were leading into this earlier with your learning choices as a family on your spending power, what challenges, as you've been on that journey, have you encountered in trying to be more intentional and embody your commitments with your spending, and how have you overcome those challenges and grown over time personally?
One of my colleagues, Larry Strengy, who is a generosity counselor for congregations, one of the things that he's really told congregations over the years is to be more focused on what you allocate instead of what you accumulate. So he always talks to these congregations about so often we get so nervous and worried about our own congregation's sustainability into the future that we, really focus on what is the income and the offering income of this congregation. And he said the best thing for generosity is to just help change that focus to what can we do for this world and what can we do for this community, and how can we focus on the resources that we have to give. And that's something that I've really tried to adopt as a family, instead of being focused on not just like how much money we make, but also on what we accumulate in terms of goods. The focus is on what can we give. And that's one of the reasons that I was a shopper at the Purple Tree, because it was a place where I could shop but also be giving through my purchases. Which was something really important to us as we have been growing as a family, both in our own generosity and in our learning about how to live a more climate justice-centered life, and how to just be a human being in this broken world that cares for other folks. And so that's something that I've really focused on in my personal life, and I think that's something that the store really embodies as well.
Yeah, the store follows, it's called a triple bottom line business model. And it's very similar. Really, the only legal requirement we had in a store is to make a profit. I mean, it's pure raw capitalism. And but the interesting thing is if you follow a triple bottom line a kind of approach to business, where you put on equal footing people, planet, and profit, stores like the Purple Tree end up being more profitable than pure capitalists or profit-only organizations. that's sort of building on what you just said. I mean, if you really prioritize the people and what's good for the people and what's good for the planet, profit always takes care of itself. And it gets your mind in a whole different mindset where you're concentrating on the more important things. And the paradox is the thing that business says is important, which you don't really say, is better. The result is better. So, but it's hard to stay on. I mean, all of the cultural pulls are drawing you always against it, and it's just so much easier sometimes to buy cheap and whatever. And but in the long run, it just doesn't pay. So,
I think that what really attracted me both as a client, a customer of the Purple Tree, and what I see draws folks in today is the stories behind the products.
Yeah.
And when we are able to say, you know, this was made by this person and this is what their life looks like and this is how you are supporting, you know, peace, justice, creation, all these things in the world, that really gets people excited. It really gets people, because I mean, I think as human beings, we all have that instinct to care for each other and care for this world. And those stories just draw you right in and make you just really just thrilled to be a part of that, the bigger story.
well, you're lucky. You're a member of the one of the better generations when it comes to that. You know, not everybody shares that, but at least the current last three are sort of finally moving in that direction.
Well, it's definitely buying a product locally, supporting the local, but with those global connections embodies that change model where we think globally but act locally, which is great. So building off of that, maybe as we start to wrap up, I wanted to lift up a quote that I recently came across by Anna LaPay, a national best-selling author and advocate for food justice and sustainability, who was new to me. But I thought this was a great quote to consider today. Every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want. So I wonder, before we wrap up, if you could just both kind of paint a little bit more. We already have a good bit, but paint a little bit more. What kind of world do you want, and how do you plan to continue using your spending and consumer power to vote for that kind of world?
Well, I think when I think about my children, I already see them so much more aware than I was at that age, and I see them, questioning everything that we buy as a family, and I see my daughter saying things like, "Oh, you got the milk in the plastic jug. Remember to buy it in the carton." I could see her doing that as, an 8-year-old. And I see her so much more focused on the conditions of people all over the world, in our community and beyond. And I see her wanting to make sure that everybody has a shot, and wanting to make sure that everybody's accepted, and wanting to make sure that everyone's loved. And that brings me so much hope. And, like Dan said, the store is a beautiful place for these kids to be educated. And I saw my kids educated there since birth as we shop there. And, even more so since we bought the store, where they are able to take an active role in picking what we choose to carry. So I really see hope for the future in the way that each generation gets more aware and more passionate. And, as a person and as a family, I just want my kids to do better than I did. And they are already. And that's really wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I grew up in a family where my father used to say, if you want to know a person's priorities, look at the check stubs. Now, I realize people don't use check stubs much anymore. So in a sense, I'm sort of fortunate to have always had that basic concept as a part of my worldview, although I mostly have been a loser at it. Liz and I are so fortunate. 2 times we got on realizing we just had too much stuff. So we just sold everything and rented an apartment, furnished apartment, and lived there a few years, mostly when I was in graduate school, so I can't be too self-righteous about it. It was sort of forced on me. And another time when we went to live in Europe, in Hungary, sold everything. And always vowed when we came back, we're going to live a simpler life and not get all this stuff. And both times, I'm embarrassed to admit it, you know, you're so surrounded with all this stuff that little by little you just find yourself slipping back again. And in a sense, it's easier now, I think, where we are in an age cohort where we don't have many needs, and it's much easier to sort of make more rational choices than it was when we had a family of 4 and all those needs. But I too am really buoyed. My spirits are buoyed by the younger generations who have a much more wholesome view of this. Not necessarily, I think, because they're inherently better. I mean, we just had no conscious knowledge of some of the stuff, some of the terrible stuff we participated in during those years, you know, and even stuff like food stuff. We thought, well, we're doing the best for our kids. We got these new products. Well, it turns out they're much worse for our kids than stuff I ate from the farm. You know, you grew up in Nebraska, so and in a sense, they're lucky to have had all the social learning that has taken place in the generations before, and can come into this world with these ideas that are shared. And I just hope the world somehow is a better place for them. I think once they get in charge, and you're already there, you're the first wave of it, hopefully things will change.
Well, hopefully we continue, all of our generations continue to embody the learning that, you know, the store was founded around, and the growth, and we'll move forward in that way. Yes, because as you say, it's often said that budgets are moral documents. Spending is also moral action, and so an important commitment and a great opportunity to do that, and do it in community at the Purple Tree for everyone. So I thank you both as we wrap up for being with us today. I also want to thank the River Channel as ever for hosting us, and of course thank all of you, our viewers, for listening in on this conversation. Hopefully it sparks further reflection for you about how you would like to live out your commitments, whether they come from your faith or elsewise through your spending habits. And until we meet again for our next clergy conversation, may peace and wholeness be with you all.